5 years of crossing the desert. This video is anything but free because you will skip all the disasters, obstacles, and you will quickly get to the reward for all the hard work I have put in over 5 years. I've summed it up in 7 concrete applicable lessons. The first lesson you will learn from my 5 years of crossing the desert is to understand that technology is progressing faster than the world itself. I'm one of those people who, when AI emerged for the general public, that is with OpenAI in 2023, said that this was extremely bad news for ordinary citizens. I think, like Yuval Noah Harari in Sapiens, that there is going to be a micro-society between elites who will share beauty through chemistry in the genes. That is, they will be able to create their own perfect titanic children with amazing genetics. Money, because they will have all the material and immaterial resources at their disposal, including land and production mechanisms. And above all, IQ, because as Laurent Alexander says in his book, The War of Intelligences, what are you going to do when, on the one hand, the rich can increase their IQs or their children's IQs by 150, 300, maybe 1000, and you, on the other hand, are going to have children and still teach them to read, while the others will speak 80 languages by the age of 8? I think that the online entrepreneurial bubble is doomed to disappear because we are increasingly moving towards an investment bubble. Why? Because thanks to the AIs, tools, and SaaSs that have been created, it's only certain teams that will be gorging themselves like never before. But soon, AIs will be creating their own AIs. So I don't believe at all in online entrepreneurship over the next few years. Not now, but over the next few years, to become rich, to get richer, to earn more money. Because in fact, you will never be able to earn more money to change your condition. It will be over because people buy value. Unless you have enormous personal branding, plus, people won't buy from you. So the only way to get rich is to invest. If you still don't feel the urgency, it's dead for you. Unless you come from a very wealthy family with assets, you're protected. Otherwise, it's all over for you. Because whether you work or not, we're in it for the quality. We're in it for the value. Except, who places the quality? If a competitor places it, the competitor is human. He's only got 24 hours and so on. If it's an army of 110 GPTs against you, it's over. Why is it over? I'm hammering it home for you because I know it's a little hard to imagine that this is the end. It's like a big breakup when you were imagining all kinds of things with an old girlfriend. Because whatever happens, you are not worth enough and you will never be worth enough to compete with them. So, in fact, whether you work or not, the result is the same. You are worse than the AIs. The second lesson you learn from my 5 years of crossing the desert is that nobody owes you anything. People are always waiting for someone to help them, someone to get them out of it. Or maybe luck, fate, maybe even God sometimes. That's religious procrastination. You can believe in God, you can want Him to follow you, but God is not at your mercy. God is not at your service. So you get moving and heaven will help you. You have to realize that at some point it's bound to be too late. And above all, it's getting harder every day. By the way, I'm going to put up an email capture and/or a survey if you are interested in paid private videos. in which I would give a lot more advice, in which I would get even more down to earth. So let me know if you are interested or not, okay? Let's resume. The third lesson you learn from my 5 years of crossing the desert in a few minutes is to compare yourself to the people you want to be like, not the people you live with. Be careful, because your subconscious has retained all the discussions you have had since you were a child, including internal ones. So you are bound to be extremely biased. That's why if you live in a poor environment and look like the people you don't want to look like, you need to isolate yourself. Isolation is going to be hard, but by isolating yourself, you're going to be less influenced, which means you're actually limiting the damage. Be meaner to yourself. You have to make choices as if the next version of you in 6 months' time were making them today. That is, with more experience, more money invested too, more IQ, basically more capital, more confidence, and more experience. Pretend. If you can't do it, if you are not there yet, pretend. It's from Tony Robbins. Why am I telling you this? Because 90% of this game is mental. That's what Mike Tyson's coach used to say to himself. The first lesson, and this is my favorite from these 5 years of crossing the desert that you are benefiting right now, is to take as many risks as possible. Because here we don't take as many bets as possible. We take as many risks as possible. In other words, everything is calculated. And we know our universe very, very well. When I invest huge sums in cryptocurrencies compared to my previous salaries, I know what I'm doing. The smarter I am, the bigger the sums I invest. Remember that it's because you didn't dare to do it that you have to live today like a little rat or like a little bourgeois rat. But you are still a rat. It's because you didn't decide to do some financial research on YouTube 10 years ago and buy cryptocurrency. It's because you didn't decide to buy or even build in emerging countries, not necessarily in capital cities, but in towns where a square foot was worthless at the time, but close to the sea, and where today prices have risen by perhaps 40 times in 20 years. It's because you didn't dare buy a camera back then, worth maybe $500 or $1,000 maximum, or make entrepreneurial videos 10 years ago on YouTube that today, for all that, you have to do maybe 10 times more, put 10 times more resources on the balance to get maybe only a tenth, because the market, in fact, there are so many competitors that your share is shrinking more and more for the new entrants, thus taking 10 times as much risk, but unconsidered. There is no pride in being an entrepreneur and struggling. It's the same for street pickup, it's the same for health, it's the same for everything. There are people who can't manage to go on a diet, who can't manage to change their eating habits, because it's the unknown. Every time they swallow a meal, and an average one at that, it brings them closer to death at 86 pounds from cancer on chemo. A death when you didn't have your white hair yet, of course. The fifth lesson you learn from my 5 years of crossing the desert for free is to get rid of your phone. Why? Because the 2080 problem of your attention, your addiction, your concentration is your phone. I recently came across an article that said we spend 20 years of our lives looking at our phones. So yes, me for example, my phone It's used for my video script notes, to search with GPT-4, or currently full of info on expatriation, on anything you want. But despite all that, today your phone is your enemy. Now, I know you might think I'm extreme. You might think I'm a bad student because I've got a phone in my hands too. I will tell you one thing, because I'm honest, I have weaknesses too. I don't pretend to be a superhero. I will tell you this. Sometimes when I'm working, I feel like opening my phone. So I unlock it and I don't do anything on it. I feel better. Can you imagine my level of addiction? Sometimes we go to YouTube to open the application, close it, and get back to our work. And we are actually less tense. Can you imagine the level of addiction that is logical, consistent, normal? Why is that? It's because the internet is stronger than we are. The internet never gets tired. It's always renewing itself, and there is always something new, because there are lots of people who earn their living showing their products, showing their articles, showing their content. So, as long as there is money on the internet and there is more money than in real life, the internet is bound to remain stronger than us. So, the most important thing is to cut off your phone rather than restrict it. It's the same thing with a girl we have been obsessed with in the past, after a breakup, for example, where all we do is think about her, even though there are millions out there at least better than her, but we just don't know them, or we just haven't been together yet. So inevitably it's going to be harder again. Nothing is done. We have to work on it again. It's the savior syndrome. So stop trying to save your phone, because the purpose of your phone is not to save you. This sixth lesson I'm teaching you from 5 years of crossing the desert in a few minutes for free is never to follow the news again. So I know it's appealing even now, the replays on YouTube everywhere from traditional media. All this news, in fact, it was the same when we were born. There is a really cool game, which is to read the front page of your newspaper, region, whatever, that was published on the day you were born. And you will see that, in fact, it's the same subjects. Miscellaneous news, unemployment, immigration, miscellaneous news, unemployment, immigration, miscellaneous news, unemployment, immigration, over and over again. It's like meta. It works, so we reuse it. Ask yourself, for every piece of content you consume, are you the producer or are you the consumer? Likewise, in your life, there needs to be a balance between what you produce for others and what you consume from others. Why? Because you don't follow this video to be a vulgar consumer of everyone else. You're following this video, and I'm training you to do so that it's your turn too. But if, on the other hand, you don't have any product available, for example, if we're talking about money, on the market, in fact, you can become rich. You understand? You don't have any logical, coherent product with a great value sold cheaply, a good guarantee alongside it, available testimonials, a good professional site as if it were a huge brand behind it, a huge team in any case. To become rich, above all, your life changes when your wallet changes. Put money back at the center of your priorities, because if you keep looking at the news, you're actually changing your path. You look to the past. Why? Because it's always the same news. Look to the future. The future is you. The seventh lesson I'm going to teach you, and it's the most important for me, which is why I kept it at the end of my 5 years of crossing the desert, is to aim lower. So Yes, I know that ever since you are a kid, you have been told to believe in your dreams. Ever since you were a kid, people have been saying you have no limits. But look at the lives of the people around you. It's all doom and gloom anytime I look at someone else's situation. Even for those with high income skills. For example, I have a friend who has his knee operated on by a great surgeon. He must earn between $40,000 and $60,000 a month. He is at the end of his career. My friend told him, "Oh, that's great for you. You will be retiring soon." The surgeon replied, "I can't afford it." You put the pressure on yourself when nobody else cares. If you die tomorrow, what do you think your Facebook friends are going to think? He was so young, too bad. Nothing more. Nobody really knows you. So be lamer but more regular, or at least be lamer but smarter. That's what I do, because hesitation leads to paralysis, but moving is more important than perfect, because perfect depends on how many times you have tried. Easy